Marker.
My name is Chris Batts. My near death experience was my suicide attempt. Everything all started when I was 6 months old. My mom was on her way to a modeling career, and this is what my grandma told me. So she was on her way to being a model. She was gonna do something, like she was gonna do a lot of things. She got pregnant by a guy that she met, and they had me. So I guess I was like the mistake. Dad wasn't really around. He tried to kill me when my mom was pregnant, but he got sent to jail for drugs, for selling drugs. So he was in prison for a while, like the first few years of my life. My mom, at 6 months old, I don't know if it was postpartum or what, but she felt that having a kid messed up her whole life. So she threw me in a neighborhood dumpster. So what ended up happening is the neighbor just so happened to be taking out her trash, and she heard a baby crying. Like, out of all the time she happened to take out her trash, and she says, "Oh my God!" She digged through the trash can and said, I know this baby." She knew my mom. So my grandma was at church, so she calls my grandma's church and says, "You need to come home because your grandson is in a dumpster, and he's with me, and I'm not taking him anywhere. I'm not letting him go with anyone until you get here." So my grandma came, and so, after that they went to court. My grandma got custody of me. Judge told her she could never have me again. So I was with my grandma up until I was 4 years old. The reason my grandma ended up getting sick, she had a nervous breakdown. So she was in the hospital for a year. So during this time I was going a couple places until I ended up I ended up moving into my mom's sister's place. This is a sister my mom hated more than anyone, and she didn't like her either. My mom would always like tell me like a few years later how they treated her bad. So this sister was like the worst. They had kids of their own, but I was the outside kid. I was a lot of abuse there. This was the worst, darkest times in my life. A lot of abuse, a lot of physical and like mental abuse. It was all bad. I didn't have any confidence, anything in myself since I was a kid. I remember actually after preschool one day, I was at home, and I was like, I'm gonna teach myself how to grow up. I'm gonna become an adult on my own. And this was at 4 years old. So I'm like, I started wanting to learn everything about life. So I was maybe first grade, second grade. I started getting in trouble at school. I was always like getting in fights with like bigger kids because I felt like I had something to prove. I was always fighting at home. We went to church all the time on Sundays and sometimes during the week. But I always wondered how can. Oh, and by the way, I was raised Baptist Christian. So we were taught that like if you sin, you burn for eternity. And I was always scared of that growing up. Like, I don't want to disappoint God because I'll burn for eternity. But I also thought, if I'm in a house like this and these people are so mean, like, what's the point of, like, even going to church? Is God like this? Like, does God really commend this? But, so over the years, I say I was about 8 years old, start cutting myself to, like, as my own therapy. I tried to, like, kill myself when I was 8 years old. Because 8 years old, I felt like I was grown already. I felt like my life was already wasted. By the time I was 9 or 10, I started having a better release, and I started writing lyrics, music lyrics. So my other therapy was going to visit my grandma for the weekend, or my my Uncle Rabbit. And he loved me more than anyone. He wasn't blood related, but he was married to one of my blood aunts. I couldn't stand this aunt. But he loved me more than anybody. And a lot of the family didn't like him because he was nice to me. He didn't like want to beat me all the time. He just understood me. So that was another release I had. So if I wasn't with him during the weekend, I would be at home writing lyrics in my room about how painful everything was. So by the time I was about maybe 13 or something like that, I was kicked out of this house because I was visiting my grandma one weekend, and they found lyrics. They went to my room and found lyrics that I wrote, and a lot of it was about them and about how hurt I was. And they said, well, I'm glad, like, I found these. He never has to come back. And I didn't even go back home to get my stuff. They literally dropped off the stuff at my grandma's. So who knows how much stuff they really did drop off and how much stuff they threw away, you know. So lost a lot of stuff. By the time I was in high school, that's when life changed. I moved out into one of my other aunt's house, and it was beautiful at first because this was always my favorite aunt. She was happy, go, and always smiling and everything like that. High school, I was very, very popular, and suicidal like thoughts were gone. I didn't even think about like wanting to be dead like in high school. But years prior to this, I did. I always just like, there's no reason for me to be here. I wish I was dead. But high school, I enjoyed it. But I ended up being so social that my grades started to suck. And the aunt that I was with noticed this, and then she took everything from me, and like before. So I ended up sort of running away. But then I came back and told her, I said, I don't want to be here. And this was before my 16th birthday. I told her, I don't want to be here. I want to have a 16th birthday party. My grades shouldn't reflect me celebrating my 16th birthday. So I left. I said, I deserve this. Left with the aunt that my Uncle Rabbit's wife, which my Uncle Rabbit died when I was 14 already. So I was sort of going through it. I missed him, and I knew no one else in this family would love me, even his wife. So I moved in with his wife. She let me sort of be a little more free. She let me have a 16th birthday. Problem with that was living with her, there was a lot of bed bugs and stuff like that. And I slept like on a chair in this place. Like, I didn't have a bedroom. It was just her room, and she never closed the door. And she had this mirror that she hung up on the wall. So when she would look through the hall, you could see what whoever's doing anything in the living room. So I didn't really have any privacy. Even on the bathroom door, she put like tape on the lock, and on the part where it locks, so you can't close it all the way. Yeah, so a lot of the times what she would do too, like with the tub, she would put stuff in the tub so that way I can't like take a shower or something. So I would have to like go in the sink and like use like take bird baths and stuff like that. It wasn't like this all the time. This happened like later. But for a while it was okay. This aunt, I guess you could say I was more alone, like trying to figure out life. She wasn't really the type that can talk to me about, like, give me advice about stuff like that, about life that I needed. So I'm still no mom, no dad, no anybody to really look up to. It's just me. But still, for some reason, high school, my friends were my family, you know. But then after high school was over, I didn't graduate. My friends did. So I saw them move on with their lives, and they had their families there to help them get their first cars, their first like apartments, their first jobs. Everything was like given to them, or either help. They had like a hand up. Me personally, I didn't have any of that, so I had to do it the long way and the hard way. This right here, after high school, started making me really more. It brought the depression back. And then it brought social anxiety. I was so like in fear of people. I didn't even want to go on the bus because I knew people would stare at me when I walk on the bus. And I'm like, oh, they're probably talking about me now or something like that. Social anxiety sucks. So that just went from not caring, and more depression came. The darker it seems like my soul got, like I just didn't care about anything. But I always believed in God. But I always felt like God was this mean entity that is gonna like burn just because I'm unhappy and I'm sinning and stuff like that. And I stopped going to church with a lot of the people that I went with because I felt like if people, like how I grew up, if people are like that in church, like something isn't right, and I don't want to be a part of this. So I just honestly, years later, I started like certain like pills and drugs and stuff like that, and like drinking all the time. But I got bored of all that. I guess my attention span gets bored sometimes, so I got bored of all that, and I'm like, you know what, there's no reason for me to be here. I kept calling, asking for God for some type of like message or something. It seemed like everything was bad. I wasn't getting anything back from him. So I said, I'm gonna plan myself a suicide. I'm gonna get out of here. I want to go to a different place, a better place. And from what I know, they in church they say suicide is the unforgivable sin. But at this point, I was so depressed, I didn't care. I'm like, whatever happens, happens. Nothing could be worse than this. That's how alone I was. So I went to the train station one day, and I looked at all like the trains that were, well, at the times they passed by. I stayed there all day, and I knew what time I wanted to lay in front of a train. So that was my plan. I thought of like drowning myself and all this stuff. I'm like, no, I'm just gonna do it fast. I'm gonna lay in front of a train track and let it hit me. That was the plan for months. During my childhood, I see my mom. I can count maybe on one or two hands the amount of times I've seen her. So I really don't know much about her. I just know every time I seen her, she would always tell me things like, she's not my mom and she doesn't want me. And how lucky I was for her not to abort me. And I should just be grateful for that. That's what kind of person she was. And she says she's taking care of me by coming to visit me. The reason she came to visit was because she owed my grandma money or something, and she would just give her money. She'd give me a one-armed hug, and then she leaves. I didn't really spend much time with her. Actually, I can honestly recall one time that I spent with her. She called herself cutting my nails, but they were like so bloody. Like by the time she was done, it was bad. All of them were just bloody, and they hurt for days. It sucked. And then she wanted to spend quality time the same day and watch a movie. Okay, I'm gonna show you a movie. This movie's called Crips and Bloods. And I'm like 5 years old at this point. So this is mother and son time, for her. But that's like the only mother and son time I could ever remember us having. All this stuff got to me because I would even see kids when they're older. I want family too. I want a mom. I want someone to hug and stuff like that too. Someone to tell me they love me. But even the aunt I was living with, it wasn't like that. All these thoughts carried over with me of all these years. And then the thought that I thought God even abandoned me. I'm like, what's the point of being here? So all this stuff was going through my head while I'm at this train station. And I was ready. So one day I was arguing with a friend. I left their house and they sort of knew what was going on. So I just left. As I'm walking down the street, I hear their car. They honk the horn and they're like, get in the car, get in the car. So I'm like, fuck. I'm like, my plan is ruined now. I gotta come up with a whole new plan of suicide. This is how I was thinking. A whole new plan I gotta come up with now. But I got in the car, and at all the moments in the world, my mom calls me. I'm talking to my mom, and I'm thinking, how the hell did she get my number in the first place? She tells me, your grandma gave me your number. She told me you were asking about her to ask if I talked to you. I called you to let you know I'm not your mom. I don't want you. I never wanted you. Get this through your head. You're not my son. So I looked at my phone and I said, well, F you, you never were. Well, fuck you, you never were. That's how I said it. And I rolled down the window, tossed it out. I looked at my friend in the driver's side. Now imagine somebody that's suicidal already. They're planning it. So my mom could have been that ultimate thing that made me change my mind. Didn't happen. So what she said basically confirmed that I'm gonna do this. I'm out of here. So I looked at my friend in the driver's side and I said, fuck this. Opened the door and jumped out. And I just remember this boom sound on when my head hit the concrete. And that's when I had my near-death experience. That's when all the near-death experience started. So I just, that boom, after that was this nothingness. Everything was slow motion, just slow. And there was these different colors, blue and black and red, just all these colors. But Literally, there was nothing there. Then I felt this ultimate presence where I knew it was God. So the first thing I'm thinking during this time is like, oh man, I'm like, I'm gonna burn. Like, I'm gonna burn. And I felt a bunch of love behind this entity. I didn't see it with my eyes, I just felt it. But you know, it's that ultimate God, what I know him as. So I'm like, you know what? Okay, I get it now. I get it. I'm not gonna kill myself now. I'm just kidding. Like, let me go back and get perfect, and then I'll come back to you. And that entity, God, was like, no, like, I want you now, like how you are now. And I'm like, what, me? Like, yeah, I want you now. So I had a bunch of questions in my head, like, oh, like, because I didn't know it was God. So I'm like, who is this? So literally, the order was like, I am God. Yes, I am real. Yes, angels are real. They're a gift from me. Want to meet them? And I was like, no. I was like, no. I definitely didn't even believe in angels. I thought that was just for TV. Like, I thought, like, I don't know, like the halos. And I was like, that stuff is made up. Hogwash. But somehow I just knew God was real. So I'm like, well, if angels are real, I guess I believe it now. So like, all right, see you later. Like, I was ready to go back, but no. I seen this projection screen, and here's a like video of this prostitute walking by, and then he's like, I love her. Then here's a guy in a business suit with a briefcase walking by. He says, I love him. Then here's a picture of a guy, or video of a guy like on a skateboard with a big joint in his hand. I mean, in his mouth, just on a skateboard. He goes, I love him. What I took from that was doesn't have favorites. Like, God loves everyone the same. That's what I took from that. He didn't say those exact words, but that's the message I got from those. So I'm like, well, what am I supposed to tell everyone? Like, if I go back, they're going to think I'm a real life crazy person. And he says, go and tell everyone that I love them. And I just felt like this instant urge to just go running out, like, God loves you, God loves you, God loves everybody, God loves you, like that. And he doesn't have favorites. You guys are all good. So after that, he tells me, I will go to the end of the world so everyone is with me. And I was like, whoa, like, you can't make this stuff up. Like, this is not human stuff right here. So I didn't see, I just felt him get like on a knee and give me a hug. The tightest hug, the most safest hug I've ever gotten. I didn't want it to end. I felt like I was more like at peace during this. So I said, okay. And I guess more to the whole let me reintroduce myself to you, I kind of took that as the next part where there was a bunch of words in the air. One of the words just flew around. One of them said loving. Then you see a word caring. They're all capital letters. And then you see the one like with the most exclamation points at the end of it. And it said long suffering. And it just like flew slowly right by. So I'm guessing like these are his characteristics. I say he, but it's more like I felt like that super most macho man love ever. But at the same time, I felt in that hug was more than any woman ever in the world would give you. Like, all the love in the world the woman has is nothing on that hug. So it was really like womanly, more than that. But so after that, like, he leaves. Okay. Now I'm seeing angels. I see all these angels in groups. Now I didn't see God, but I seen these angels. I'm looking at them. And then like when I'm in the sky and I'm looking, I see the clouds, and then I see a bunch of Bibles just being tossed around and crosses being tossed around. I knew that was from my own thoughts, because all my life I'm like, I didn't read the King James Version Bible anymore, and then I didn't stay a Baptist Christian, so that means I'm going to burn in hell. Like, that's what I was thinking. But there was 2 angels in particular that I, for some reason, was attached to right away. and they both grabbed one side of my arm, other grabbed the other side, and they're like, "It's okay. Don't be scared. We love you. You're gonna be okay." And they're telling me like, "Don't be scared." And I'm like, okay, if they're telling me don't be scared, could they really be good, or are they're trying to trick me? I have trust issues. So I'm like, they're trying to trick me. That's what it is. You guys aren't I'm not falling for that. I seen this donut hole, what I like to call a donut hole. It's like a hole in this cloud. They're trying to convince me not to cross that cloud. Because I'm guessing if I had crossed it, maybe I wouldn't have came back. And they know how I am. So as they're telling me not to worry, everything's okay, I look to my left side and I see the left angel. Sort of, I call like a beetle type looking face is what I can remember. There was so much light, I couldn't really see the whole complete face. So I had to like, because I was squinting and I had to like turn away. There was so much light. Like I couldn't take it. It was like looking at the sun directly. But then the wings were wide. I say he was about not seven, about maybe like 6 to 9 feet tall. And then I look at him. He goes, "Are you sure you want to go?" And he was kind of like stern. So I was like, I'm gonna look this way now. So I was scared enough. Like, don't talk to me like that, nerd. I'm scared already. Think I'm gonna burn. I need some like compassion right now. So I looked to my right one, and this one was super buff, like huge. He was ripped. I looked at his sandals that he had on, and I'm like, whoa, like if he stepped on the earth, or even in like, if he put one foot on the earth, like half the city would just be destroyed. Like, boom, I could just see it. So then he has blue jeans, a red flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up to the elbows. Once again, very buff. I looked at him and I'm like, the gym. Like, okay, I promise. Like, I'll go back to the gym. I promise. Just let me out here. I'll go to the gym. I'm telling you, I'm going to do it. He had curly hair, and I'm thinking, uh-oh. And he's also about 9 feet tall. And I'm like, he's going to kill me worse than this one. And then in the softest voice, he was like, "You have so much to do for so many people." And I'm like who, me? I have so much to do for so many people. So they both tell me, look down. I look down. I see my body on the floor. I see the paramedics right here. And they're like, no, you need to realize stuff like this does happen. You're not going to believe it. It's like, you need to look again. So I look down again. And then like a camera, it zooms way close to my face. So I seen everything. Like, here's my body. Here's my friend on their phone, separated way far apart from me. And then here's the paramedics here. And then there were so many like flashing lights, and it was intense. So I looked at both the angels and said, whoa, that stuff really does happen. And they told me, they said, so do you want to stay or do you want to go? And then I felt this urgency to come back. Like, it was like a no-brainer. I'm like, no, I'm going back there. But they were giving me the option, like, do you want to stay or go? Like, if you want to go with us, it's okay. So I was like, no, I just remember that you have so much to do for so many people thing. I didn't understand any of it then. But I was like, I'll go back and do it. Even though my life sucks anyway. So I said, okay, I'll go back. But snap of a finger, I guess I'm back in my body. I woke up. From what I heard from my friend told me, I woke up in the ambulance. They said I was like trying to adjust my neck because I guess they had a neck brace on me and it was bothering me. But they said I went back to sleep after that. That part, I sort of remember the ambulance part, but I thought I was dreaming. Next thing, I woke up a couple of days later in the hospital. And as soon as I woke up, I'm in ICU and all the nurses are just looking at me and start calling me miracle and saying how much of a miracle I was, and they thought I wasn't coming back. I felt the love that I got was the love everybody in the world is supposed to feel. But I felt like the world somehow at some point forgot that, or it was taken, or something happened some time to where all that love was not there, then you start having hate, and it just doesn't go well. So now, like, it's like love is a good thing, but that's literally what everybody's supposed to feel, is that love. I feel like that's where we come from. My proof of near death experience, and I know like the angels I met did this for a reason. I would have came back and said I was hallucinating or something like that, but they knew I needed proof. So that's why they told me to look down again. Cause I looked down, they're like, no, you need to look down again. Like, you need proof. So that's when I looked down again, and aware, very aware, I'm here, but yet my body's here. I'm like, how does that happen? See my friend right there, way over on her phone. Paramedics over here, like the cop cars and everything else. That's when I knew it was proof. That second time I looked down. Had I not looked down again, I probably still would have doubted it. So a lot of times I do hear people tell me, you're hallucinating, or you've met demons, or that didn't really happen. How do you know? That sounds like DMT, stuff like that. And I always tell them, the proof was when I looked down. That's when I knew I'll never doubt this experience ever again. That second, when they said, look back down, again, you need to see this, that this does happen, zoomed in like a camera, and I seen myself lying there on the floor. That's when I knew. I think to live fearlessly, don't be afraid of life. You know, like, don't be afraid to love. Don't be afraid. And a lot of people are afraid to love. They don't know how to react to love because there's so much hate in the world. So it's like, when someone shows you love, a lot of the times people aren't used to it. So they wonder, like, why are you doing this for me? Like, why am I feeling this love? They don't know how to react to it because they're afraid of it. So the experience I had with Source was, the communication was, it wasn't audible. Like, I am God. Like, it wasn't like that. It was telepathically. So the words are being spoken. You can feel it and hear it in your head. But then at the same time, the emotion behind it, you feel it here. In your heart, you feel that emotion that is coming from. So whether it's a good or a bad emotion, you feel what emotion it is, but you hear the words without, like, in your thoughts. I feel like my near-death experience definitely gave me a sense of responsibility, especially the fact that God says, go and tell everyone that I love them. I'm like, oh, I'm screwed already. And then with the angels thing, they're like, you have so much to do for so many people. I'm like, oh, great, I'm cursed already. So I have to do this now. I think my near-death experience definitely gives me a sense of, like, I guess, like you say, responsibility to help certain people that don't know what it's like to have that type of experience. Because I was one of them. I was oblivious and didn't know anything about, like, spirituality and, like, the gifts that spirit world has for us and stuff like that. Like, I thought all that stuff was just bogus. So there's so many people around the world like that, and, like, they're lost. And I'm like, I feel very grateful that I had that opportunity. So now I can help other people. And also it helps me understand people better too. Because I know not everyone knows what I know now. Or should I say, like, what I found out years ago. I definitely am in suicide prevention. That's one of my main things. I talk about my near-death experience, but suicide prevention is my main point when I speak to people. It's because people are very, and the reason why is because I know the mind of someone that is suicidal. They are not going to just go out and tell people that they're suicidal. So I feel like I want to speak to those type of people too, so they can know, like, oh, well, he knows what we're going through. Like, because who else better to listen to than someone who knows what you're talking about. My book definitely touches on suicide prevention. That's the most important message of my book is suicide prevention. Of course, along with near death experience and angel communication, all that, but the my most important thing is suicide prevention, to stop somebody from taking their own life. To those people who have lost someone, I've learned that you didn't really lose them. They left. Sorry. They left physically, but they never left. Their spirit does live on. It's not like their spirit is dead. Your spirit can't die. So they still love you, and they're still somehow trying to communicate with you. Like, so just I would like to say, like, don't think they're gone forever, because they're not gone forever. I think humanity does have a chance to grow and bring some like peace and love into the world, but I think it's gonna take a lot of work from a lot of people to make other people aware that it's okay to love. I believe that God's most important thing that he wants us to do is love and help each other. Like, everybody can help one person, and it's like a universal thing. One person has something that the other person doesn't. So you might have a chef that can cook, but someone else can't cook for beans. But yet this other person is like a good speaker. So this person that can't cook, they want to talk to someone that knows how to talk. So they might like, hey, like, help me, like, motivate me now, like, tell me something positive, like, and this person might want some good food. Like, this speaker, like, well, hey, I'm a speaker, but I can't cook and I'm hungry. Like, can you make me some food? Like, everybody can help somebody do something. Like, everybody's good at stuff. And they can help other people. It's hard to explain. It's like a chain.
We're all here for each other, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a chain. You could all help somebody. We're all here for each other. Well, that's how it's supposed to be anyway. After my near-death experience, everything changed about me, really. Pretty much everything. I mean, I had a horrible temper. Like, horrible. I'm more understanding now. I'm way more patient. People's situations, I mean, they're just different. Not every near-death experience is... Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. So, a lot of people have had different things happen in their experiences. Like, something that's like a pinpoint. Like, something that makes their near-death experience stand out. Like, for example, mine was literally looking at my body on the ground while my friend is right here on their phone. And I knew what was going on. I think we all have some type of proof that our near-death experience did happen and that we're not hallucinating. Like, I know, for example, there was one near-death experiencer that had died from a lightning, being hit by lightning, and there's still charcoal on their porch as their proof. So we all have something that stands out in our experiences. So I guess sort of like that helps us not doubt what happened. Like, this really did happen. I usually do, I haven't done it in a long time, but for fun, what I usually do is make music still, occasionally, if I have time to. I also love watching boxing. Like, I love watching boxing. I've been the biggest fan of that since forever. It's always like my love right there, Sometimes for fun, what I also do is go bowling. But other than that, it's mainly like that in music, or just watch stuff like on YouTube, or because I always watch YouTube. I don't know if I could plug that in here, but yeah, you watch a lot of YouTube. Definitely, my near-death experience completely. And now, like, my content and my music now is a lot different than it was years ago. So before, I was talking about a lot of things that people wanted to hear. Now it is, as my music is more uplifting now. Like, I don't want to do, I mean, yeah, it's still real. I talk about the downsides, certain things in life, but I also bring an uplifting part in that message. So that's what definitely my near death experience changed the music that I come up with. A lot of experiencers, motivational speakers, we do a lot of things. Understand, like, I do so much speaking, so much everything, like, for no credit, like, no, for free, everything like that, right? We do things for so many other people, and then sometimes it seems like we don't get that love back. But in actuality, you're chosen. So it's kind of like, I hate to say it, but it's kind of like your job now. You have to do it. Like, you work for God now, so it's your job. And eventually in time you will be rewarded and all that, but the main point while you're doing it is to not expect anything. And I learned that. I had to learn, like, not to expect anything. To help people, and then once you don't expect something, you forget that you expected stuff, and then stuff starts happening. It's weird how that works. But basically, you're one of the chosen ones, so it's like your job now. I feel like every single person in this world has a purpose. If you're here, you have a purpose. You need to figure out what it is. And a lot of the times, it's something that you're probably passionate about, that you should pursue that purpose to help someone else. Maybe one thing I can say is, to those that are suicidal, like, my main target people, like, understand, coming from someone who is, or should I say who was like that, who had an experience that failed. Like, I came back for a reason, and that's to tell you that to stick around, because there is a God that loves you, and things will get better. They will. They have no choice but to get better.
Okay.
Because some people look at the bad and they think, well, this is going to go on forever. But once the bad is over, then you start, if you actually have the patience to wait for the good to come, you'll be so happy you did wait for the good to come.